when I used to work fine dining, it used to drive me nuts that one petal out of place and I'd just be like, no, stop, bring the dish back. Like, it has to look exactly the way I want it to look. It has to be perfect. And I don't know, it just used to drive me nuts. People would just, you know, be really slack happy and just chuck something on a plate. I'd be like, no.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. In the past, hotel restaurants and food offerings had a bad rap down under, but a lot has changed. One element of commercial cookery in hotels that has helped build the foundation of so many careers is the pastry programs. What does this foundation bring and where is it headed? Melanie Day is the head pastry chef of the Sofitel on the Gold Coast. Melanie, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. And yourself?
I'm good. You've spent your whole career in the pastry section of various hotels. What's it been like in the engine room of such big food programs doing the pastry?
Yeah, that's a good question. Usually pastry chefs are under the pump. In Australia, like my experience with hotel pastry kitchens, we get, you know, the hard tasks of making the crowd pleasers and the wow desserts and the amazing room amenities and, you know, everything expected to be just, you know, 5-star and on the money with zero budget and minimal staff. So it's just the usual kind of, I feel like in Australia, the pastry kitchens are kind of in the hotels. They're a little bit they're kind of dying, which is a bit sad. But you know, it is what it is at the moment. But yeah, hopefully they'll make a comeback.
Take us back to when you were young. What sort of role did food play for you and your family?
Right. So, I grew up in a small country town called Pittsworth, just west of Toowoomba. And we actually, like my grandfather, he grew all the fruit and veggies, and that's how it started for me, was actually like seeing it from start to finish. And, you know, seasonal, we used to pick all the fruit and we used to help Granddad in the kitchen. We used to make, you know, like apricot jam and tomato relish and you know, some days we'd just be sitting there topping and tailing beans with my granddad, like in his kitchen. And yeah, that's kind of where it started, like, you know, just amazing produce that just the smell of even just fresh peas in a pod and stuff like that. Like I can still remember how that smells. And my grandfather used to kill, you know, we used to have our own chickens and turkeys and all that sort of stuff. And, yeah, he used to do all that when we were younger. So that's kind of where it started. My mum was really amazing at baking, so she used to always be in the kitchen cooking things. And she actually has photos of me when I was really, really young sitting on the bench, you know, falling asleep while she was cooking because I help her. She's obviously she was in the Country Women's Association, so she was a really great cook. She still does, bakes amazing scones. Everyone raves about Mum's scones.
Is there anything that your mum baked when you were a kid that you can tell us about that you remember?
Mum used to make these really awesome peanut butter biscuits. Like they were like, as soon as if we came home from school and you could smell them, like in the oven baking, you could just smell peanut butter. And we used to be obsessed with them. If she was making them, if she was in the process of making them, we would probably eat half of the dough. But if they were already baked, they didn't last very long.
When did you start to get interested in food and consider it as a career path?
Well, it's funny, like with that being my background, like I just kind of took it for granted. Like I knew how to cook like that because that's just what we did. And I knew we knew how to grow fruits and veggies and stuff, and that was just how it was. So I never really considered it until when I was in high school. I went to a boarding school in Toowoomba, and we had a really amazing hospitality program. Basically, I did hospitality in senior year, and we won like a junior culinary competition. So got offered a chef's apprenticeship straight out of high school, and I had the option to. Basically, I was choosing between. I got accepted to go to university to do a visual arts degree, or chef's apprenticeship. Straight up, they were my two options when I graduated grade 12. So that was back in 2000. And so at that point in my life, I just wanted to earn money, money, get out, living at home and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I went with the chef's apprenticeship. But, yeah, that's how it started. That's how my chef's career. I actually spent the first 10 years in like kitchens as a chef before I started pastry.
Tell us about those first couple of years. Do you remember what it was like in the kitchen and the challenges?
Yeah. So it's funny. I've never really like delved into it, but it was is in Toowoomba, which is that was still pretty regional, then, and there wasn't many girls. There was not very many females in the kitchen. So the first kitchen I worked was like a gastropub, and it was like one of the busiest ones in Toowoomba, and yeah, it was all male kitchen. It was brutal. I was like really shy and quiet and didn't really say much, and yeah, just basically got eaten alive. You could say that. Definitely those experiences, though, have made me, who I am today, very like a resilient chef, that's for sure.
Over that first decade before you delved into pastry, what were some of the really integral moments that sort of guided your career?
Well, I feel like, I was never lucky enough really to have someone to be like a mentor or anything like that, which is a lot of chefs, say, oh, this person guided me and this person guided me. Yeah, I just never really had that. I was always like trying to read books and research and find recipes and all that sort of stuff. But my idea was just if I could just get as much experience as possible. Like, it was sad that I wasn't even thinking like I'm going to be the best. It was literally just I just want to learn and I just want to know like more, and I want to, create amazing food that people will love. Like that was pretty much, that was when I was a chef, that was it. And yeah, for 10 years, I feel like I really, I worked in all different like cafes, restaurants. I did fine dining. I did, the whole lot. And just trying to find where I fitted in. Like, I don't know if that sounds a bit cliche, but I really, really just was trying to figure it all out and find where I fitted in. And, yeah, then I really, really loved doing desserts, and I knew that I had a knack for desserts. I would always get thrown here, Melanie, you do the dessert menu, please. You can sort that out. You can be on dessert section. You can do dessert and larder. Like that was me. That's what I got lumped with. And so, but I loved it. So yeah, then I never really had considered it as an option to do just pastry because I believed that it was, a dying art. Like there wasn't very many pastry chefs that I'd met, that did that as their job every day. You were either like a baker or you specialized in pastry in a restaurant kitchen. That was all I really knew of pastry chefs. So I went to and did my Cert 4 in patisserie because I just thought, if the opportunity arose and there was a job for a pastry chef, that I wanted to be there and take it. So basically, Yeah, it was a bit of a random story, but one of my mates was I was up in Cairns working in a restaurant, and one of my mates decided he was moving back to New Zealand to study, and so I said, right, I'm going to go. I'm going to move to a city, and I'm going to see if there's any jobs. I had a look online, and they had some jobs for pastry chefs at Sky City at the casino, which I figured would be like a big operation in pastry perspective. And I applied, and then I left. I just 25-year-old me was like, caution to the wind, I'm on. And yeah, then I got the job there, and I basically went from like a sous chef level, being a chef, all the way back down to being a commie in the pastry kitchen. And I really had to swallow my pride, because it was just like, yeah, like no one cared. They were like, we don't care about your experience. Like pastry chefs are like totally different on it. Yeah. So I did get the job, but yeah, it was commie position. And yeah, that's where I started. I was there for 2.5 years, and that was, I would say that's probably one of, the turning points for me, because I had to start from the bottom up again. Like I still, I still felt like I had a lot more experience in hospitality, obviously, but pastry is a totally different ballgame. And that hotel, that kitchen in that hotel there was about close to 30 pastry chefs in that kitchen. So yeah. And lots of outlets through the casino, and different varieties of, you'd have the high rollers room, which had like really expensive stuff that we use, or you just have your standard everyday cheap kind of casino buffets. So we were literally doing a really wide variety of desserts. So I got taught basically everything from start to finish there. And then I did my first competition while I was there. Was the New Zealand Nationals, actually, and we had to train. We trained for 9 months for that competition. Yeah, so it was an 8-hour competition, and it was me and another team member, and we had to present, after the 8 hours, we had to present 4 plated desserts, 2 entremets, which they're the glazed cakes that are, on trend at the moment, and one showpiece, the chocolate showpiece. So my competition partner, she did the chocolate showpiece, and I had to do the rest. And basically we trained for the 9 months so that we could actually do it within the time frame, because to make all of that within an 8-hour window is, pretty it's pretty full on. So you're running like the whole time, the whole competition. So yeah.
What desserts did you make?
So they had like a winter wonderland, or like a whimsical winter theme. And I did it looked like a snow globe on the plate. That was my dessert. And it was like it had lemon and almond, like a lemon and almond crunch, and then a caramel, like a creme pat inside the snow globe. And then basically it had foams to finish and all that sort of stuff. And they had to smash open the snow globe, and the caramel ran out, stuff like that. And the entremet, I still remember the entremets were the entremet had 5 layers inside of it, and they replicated the same flavors throughout the dessert and the glazed cake. But sadly, my partner's the showpiece cracked like half an hour before we were due to present. Yeah, and one of the giant big flowers that she'd made, like this, it was like 1.5 meters tall, because we had a height limit, and it was amazing. And then the whole flower, it cracked, and the flower fell off and smashed on the floor, and we both just froze. We were just looking like, what the fuck are we doing? We both, just something just takes your breath away for a minute, and we were like, oh, okay. And we just looked at each other, because with the competition like that, you won't place unless you keep going. So you just have to just finish it, just keep going to get over the line. So she had some flower petals and stuff left on the trolley, and we just scrambled to make another flower as quickly as we could to stick it onto the piece so that we could present something. So we still ended up with a silver medal. Yeah, but even though the showpiece wasn't exactly what it was supposed to be, all my plated desserts and the entremets were all to plan. So, yeah, finished on time, cleaned up, presented, and still ended up with a silver medal. So that was pretty cool. We were pretty happy with that.
What did you take from your time in New Zealand and that sort of rich foray into the dessert world?
Well, that was like the grounds of my whole, that shaped everything for me within pastry. Like I feel like I really learned, like, number one, I absolutely loved it. So like I got in that kitchen and I was like, yeah, this is it, found it, this is where I'm meant to be. Absolutely loved working. I did all the elements of, the 3 sections in the pastry kitchen. So I just learned so much. I felt like I was just a big sponge the whole time I was there, and to have done a competition as well on top of it, like I worked ridiculous hours, of course, but that was like, that was the start of everything for me. And I feel like I've also used that training. That was Robert Bock was the name of our executive chef, and he was just probably the best exec that I've worked under, or one of. And he just wanted to share his knowledge, and to have someone that wants to share their knowledge is seriously priceless in this day and age. And that's really shaped the way I teach other like apprentices and pastry chefs as well. Like everything there was like all my base recipes and stuff. Like, when you have an executive chef that's willing to share all those recipes, the recipes that work, like I still carry around my recipe book with all my original recipes from Sky City in Auckland, like, because I know that they all work. It's like, it's really priceless, that experience. And that's, for me, that's what I pass on to other people, was what I learnt there. And like, I guess everything else was just that was like the basis of my pastry knowledge, I would say.
What sort of traits and personality do you think it takes to be a great pastry chef?
Patience, number one. Every chef I talk to, they're like, nah, hate pastry, don't have the patience. Yeah. And I don't know, I for me, it's about getting the details perfect. Even in a restaurant, like when I used to work fine dining, it used to drive me nuts that, like, it's like one petal out of place, and I'd just be like, no, stop, bring the dish back. Like, it has to look exactly the way I want it to look. It has to be perfect. And I don't know, it just used to drive me nuts, and people would just, be really slack happy and just chuck something on a plate. I'd be like, no, that's not how it's supposed to look. I don't know. It's just the details, I guess. Yeah. That's, you need patience, and you need to be able to like hone in on the details. And, yeah, I mean, I always say to people, my junior staff is, if there's something that doesn't feel right about what you're plating, don't send it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, yeah, when you look at something, when you look at a dessert or a cake or whatever, you, as a pastry chef, in your experience, if you look at it and you're like, oh, I need to change that, we'll change it, because obviously, it's not quite right. And I feel like a lot of chefs do the same thing. Like, they look at something and go, oh, that's not quite right, but they just let it go. And that's the difference for me between a pastry chef and someone who's happy to just, let it go.
A lot of chefs that we've had on Deep in the Weeds talk about the seasons and seasonality and cooking with the seasons. Well, what's that like as a pastry chef, and ensuring that you still have that precision on the plate but working with the seasons?
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's the same for a pastry chef. I find it sometimes it's easier if you work with the seasons, because my mind sometimes just goes a bit crazy with, I could do this this ingredient and this and put that in it. And it's like, no, you calm down. You know, if we've got this and it's seasonal, let's go with that and then see how we can change it. Because, yeah, working with seasonal ingredients it's key for me. But it's still up to your interpretation. It's still the way you make it, the way you can change anything with spices and different flavors and cooking techniques. Like, yeah, it's seasonal. I love cooking with seasonal produce for sure. I think
it's summer at the moment. Is there any dish that you have on the menu at the moment, or that you've created recently that speaks of summer?
Right. So, I recently did a photo shoot with a photographer here on the Gold Coast, and I just love berries. That's like, fresh raspberries. When they're in season, they're just awesome. So I'm just thinking I did like a Bomb Alaska style that had fresh raspberry inside, just with like some really cool meringue shards on the outside, and just it was more kind of more like an Eton mess kind of, pastry cream, raspberry, just your classic with the meringue all around the outside and some sponge. And like the raspberries and berries are my favorite thing to use in summer. Yeah.
You spent quite a bit of time working up in Cairns at the Pullman. How different was that environment and creating pastry dishes in Cairns compared to your experiences in New Zealand?
Yeah. So Cairns, humidity 100%. Obviously, that no sugar work. No, like there's all these things you can't do, stuff I've never ever. Funny story. I tried to make sablé, which, sablé is just your basic sweet pastry. With my recipe that I had over in New Zealand, think of Auckland's freezing cold. Cairns is like really, really hot. This pastry recipe has 50% butter, if not more. So I tried to make the pastry. I got it out of the fridge. I put it on the bench. I rolled it out, and I was just about to put it through the dough sheeter. And then finished rolling it out, rolled it onto my rolling pin, and I picked the rolling pin up, and it literally just, the whole thing just went thud. Like it all fell. It was like 2 kilos of pastry just fell in a big heap on the dough, because the butter is just like, it just was like the butter just was so melted in Cairns. And I guess I didn't really think about that until it happened to me. And then I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'm going to need to adapt and change my recipes to suit the climate here. Like it was just, even whipped cream, I'd never seen whipped cream just kind of curdle in the bowl sitting on the bench. Like me too. So, yeah, so same thing. And then later on I did I did the Savour competition in Sydney and Melbourne, 3 years running I did it, and it was exactly the same thing happened to me going from Cairns and then back down to Sydney or Melbourne to do these competitions. The first competition was a nightmare because all my gelatin in my mousses, up in Cairns, you need extra gelatin because it just, it won't set otherwise, and it definitely won't sit out on the bench and hold its shape like a cake. And then when I went down to Sydney, it was cold, and I was like, so my cake, like the mousse in the cake, was solid, and I felt like such an idiot because I'm like, Savour competition is, that's world class, and here's me just not even having the right gelatin and consistency in my mousses. I was like, oh, this is embarrassing. But anyway, it's not really ideal to be changing your recipes like the night before the competition like that. Yeah. But anyway, that's definitely something that you have to consider in working in different environments with pastry. Like, it's temperamental at the best of times. So, yeah.
These days you're back on the Gold Coast. What's it been like the last couple of years in a hotel environment with everything that's gone on, with the lack of travel and tourists, and what sort of impact has it had on what you do there?
So, major. Where do I start? Sorry. At the moment, our hotel is actually operating as a quarantine facility. So, yeah. So basically for me, like, definitely my opinion's my own, and I don't speak on behalf of the hotel or anything like that. But it's been really, really hard because basically with my chefing background, they said to me, we don't really need a pastry chef. So because I had both trades, they said, we want you to step back into the main kitchen. Basically, it kind of, to be honest, it kind of sucked because I had to, it's been 10 years that I've been a pastry chef now. So I've been doing, both for similar amounts of time. And the last thing I wanted to do was step back into the main kitchen because I love pastry. It's just what I really enjoy doing. And so obviously they made the decision to run as a quarantine facility, and so I had to run the main kitchen and start writing menus that were not definitely not a 5-star standard. Let's just say that. It was a massive shock. I feel like it's been hard hit, obviously, the hotel industry, hospitality industry in general. And I've definitely shared several conversations with friends who were working with me or in the same industry. Just massive blow for, I would say definitely. If you're a pastry chef and you're working in a hotel, you would be lucky to have your full, your role and your position. Very lucky to still have that. Yeah.
How are you feeling about the future of your role in pastry in hotels?
So at this point, they're still looking to reopen the hotel with the way everything is at the moment. I don't know, probably mid to late end of the year. Only the thing I actually observed was the climate on the Gold Coast is just the way it is. It's weird. It's really dead during the week, and then the weekends is just full capacity. It is. So that is so hard on the team, on the chefing team, because you just I'm talking 20 or 30 people during the week, and then the weekend nearly full capacity is 450, 470 in-house. And it's just that is trying to serve, even breakfast for that many people in the mornings on a weekend is just nuts. You have to almost have your full brigade working on the weekends because that's, and a lot of hotels on the Gold Coast are experiencing exactly the same thing, that they're just getting absolutely rolled on the weekends.
One of the exciting things you've got coming up is you've been invited to take over a pallet restaurant and do a full dessert degustation dinner. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, I'm so excited about this. Dayan, the executive chef there, he contacted me basically based on what I've been, posting on my Instagram, because I still like to do my dessert stuff on the side. So as I said, I recently worked with one of my photographer, a mate who's a photographer, and we did a couple of days where I just I did a whole heap of prep, and I went into the studio and I plated up heaps of desserts and stuff, and just for a whole I love doing it, number one, but also number two was for content on my social media account, because I've found that I have nil working in my position at the moment. But yeah, Dayan he just said to me, look, I've seen, some of your desserts that you've been doing on Instagram, and yeah, they said we'd be interested in talking to you about coming in and taking over the restaurant to do a dessert degustation. They haven't done anything like that before, and I thought that was really cool. So,
have you got any idea of what you're going to do yet?
I've only had brief discussions, but I've already got pages and pages and pages full of ideas. We're possibly looking at the concept Sweet Escape, because nobody's had, the chance really to get away. But I really love interactive desserts. So I love theatre. I love desserts that, you kind of have, I don't know, something's like being lit on fire, or something's got dry ice and there's smoke coming from it, or, really theatrical kind of stuff. And I love bright colours, really fresh flavours, not too sweet. I'm not one of those, I don't love really overly sweet, overpowering desserts. I like them to be nice and fresh, and just feel like you're not going to have to go to the dentist after you eat them. But yeah, I guess that's kind of my style, and it'll be, I think, five courses we're doing, plus starters, and then most likely petit fours as well. So still in the planning stages with the menu, because have to go back and forth also with Dane, the chef there. So you had
a detour into the pastry kitchen, but really found your feet in a true passion. What is it that you love about what you do?
I think for me it's the creative element, and when I found I don't know. I just feel like I'm in my element. Time passes. I might be doing something for hours and hours, and it just doesn't. It doesn't feel like I've been sitting there for that long. I don't know how to describe that, but time just seems to fly when I'm in the pastry kitchen. I just love it, really. Just being creative and being able to make things that taste good, and especially when we do specialized room amenities usually at the hotel for guests that might have an anniversary, or some special occasion that they're there for. We do small showpieces, or intricate things with chocolate, just to make their stay a little bit more personal. And that sort of stuff, when I'm set with a special task to do for guests, is that's really, I really enjoy that stuff too.
Well, the dessert degustation dinner that you're doing is on in mid-March at Palette Restaurant. Good luck with that, and it's been an honour to have you on Deep in the Weeds to hear just a bit of your story. Please keep in touch, and we'll catch up again soon.
For sure. Perfect. Okay.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.